Well, good evening and welcome to the Kansas City Public Library. I'm Henry Fortunato, Director of Public Affairs. Tonight it is our pleasure to welcome back ReShonda Tate Billingsley, who is one of the most prolific authors in the country, and she's here to kick off what we're seeing as an occasional new series here at the Central Library, in which we'll be bringing in some of the leading lights of African American literature over the next few months. The idea for this series grew out of many conversations, some of them, I must admit, over cocktails, with my best friend in this chapter of my life, the library's Deputy Director, Chepto Kazutani Buckner. So here's what Chepto and I have cooked up. ReShonda to start things off tonight. In May, Kimberly Lawson Roby talking about her soon-to-be-released novel, The Prodigal Son. In June, Victoria Christopher Murray to talk about Forever and X. And then in either August or September, details still to be worked out, Carl Weber to talk about The Man in 3B. But tonight, ReShonda is here to talk about her new novel, co-authored with Victoria Christopher Murray. It's called Fortune and Fame. This is the third in a terrific series that features two frenemies, Jasmine Cox Larson Bush and Rachel Jackson Adams. They find themselves uneasy co-stars on a new reality TV show called First Ladies, about preachers' wives. It's filled with snarky comments, backbiting, infighting, all kinds of deviousness. In other words, similar to what Chepto and I have to put up with almost every day here at the library. Of course, you will find that Fortune and Fame is a page-turner par excellence, as will soon be revealed. This is just what you'd expect from ReShonda Tate Billingsley. She's been telling stories all of her life, starting in her childhood, then professionally as a reporter and anchor for network affiliate television stations in Oklahoma and Texas, and now for almost 10 years, full-time as a wildly successful and best-selling author. Her collection would fill more than a bookshelf. It comprises 21 books, a list that comprises 8 adult novels, 18 novels in the Good Girls and the Rumor Central series, 3 anthologies, a poetry book, and 1 work of nonfiction that's titled, Help, I've Turned Into My Mother. And I can relate to that myself. Along the way, ReShonda has won numerous accolades, awards, honors, perhaps most spectacularly the NAACP Award for Outstanding Literary Work. I think the best story of all, though, is the one that ReShonda herself has lived. When her first novel was rejected by numerous publishers, she didn't take all those no's for an answer. She stepped out on faith. She established her own publishing company, and she released her debut novel, My Brother's Keeper, on her own. The book caught the attention of one of the country's top literary agents. That secured a deal for ReShonda with Simon & Schuster Pocket Books, and the rest, as they say, is history. A history that's still being written by someone who is now one of the most prolific and successful authors in America currently today. If you want to talk with ReShonda afterwards, I encourage you to come downstairs to the East Mezzanine. The Friends of the Library is sponsoring a reception in her honor. The East Mezzanine is on the 2nd floor. If you're a member of the Friends, I encourage you to come downstairs and join us. If you're not a member of the Friends, not to worry, you can join tonight. It's a modest fee, and you'll be supporting the library in all kinds of ways. And before that, please stop by the table outside, where ReShonda will be signing copies of Fortune and Fame, as well as several of her other novels following tonight's presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ReShonda Tate Billingsley.
He makes me sound so important. Thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you to the Kansas City Library for welcoming me back home, if you will. I was born here and lived here several years before moving on, and I am just so excited to be back and glad that it warmed up because I'm in Houston now and I don't do cold. I am wrapping up a tour. This is actually the end of a 16-city tour that I've been on all over the country with Victoria Christopher Murray. We've been promoting my latest book. What I like to do is just tell you a little bit about myself, about the writing process, work, my books, and then I love your questions. That's my most favorite part. But to tell you how I got started, I am one of those that has just always had an active imagination, love making up stories. My mother says it's lying, but for me, it was just an active imagination. Had this active imagination ever since I was a little girl. And my first real memory came in the 5th grade. I did a What I Did on Summer Vacation essay. And we had moved to Houston at the time, and I wrote how I grew up in the ghetto and just was witness to drive-by shootings and gangs and elderly ladies getting mugged and just how difficult life was for me. And my teacher called my mother, and she was so moved, and she said, "If ReShonda's a good student, let me know if I can do anything." And my mother said, "Ghetto? Gangs? What are you talking about? We live in a nice middle-class neighborhood." And my teacher said, "Well, why did you write that?" I said, "I don't know. I went to summer camp and this sounded so much better." And it was at that point where they explained the difference between fact and fiction. And my mother said, "I'm trying to give you a great life and you up there lying to those people." But it was just that imagination. My first real, a paid story, if you will, there used to be a magazine called True Confessions. And True Confessions was this racy magazine, and it was supposed to be true stories that people submitted. Well, I submitted at age of 15 a story called I Stole My Sister's Husband. The article was very, very racy. It was all the dirty things I did to steal my sister's husband. Now, mind you, my sister was 11, but I left out those little details. And they actually published my story, and they sent me a check for $150. I was so excited, but I never cashed that check because I was too scared to tell my mama where it came from. So I held on to that check for the longest, but I really did. I kept having that love of writing, but my mother was old school. She had never seen writers of color, so she kept saying, "You need to get a job. You need to get a real job because you can't make money writing books." That was the thing she hammered on me all the time. You need a real job. Then she reached a point when the career talk took off saying, "Okay, when you gonna buy your mama a car?" But at the time, she wasn't feeling my dream. So I went to the University of Texas at Austin. I majored in broadcast journalism, graduated, and then I went to work for the National Enquirer. I was the paparazzi. I actually took that job because straight out of college, age 21 years old, my starting salary was $106,000. So I was like, oh, I could learn to dig up some dirt and gossip on celebrities for that. But believe it or not, that got old. Shopping, you don't think you'd ever say this, but shopping got old. I hated what I was doing because you really had to get down and dirty digging up dirt and gossip. And I hated what I was doing so much. My mother hated it even more. She told people I worked for a top secret government agency. Anytime they say, well, where does she work? Oh, I can't tell you, it's top secret. So she was just as ashamed as I was. But so I turned in my notice with the Enquirer and came back to Houston and began working in television news. And along the way, I went from Houston to Oklahoma City and then back to Houston. I still had that love of telling stories and decided in 1999 to stop talking about writing a book and actually write a book. And I wrote my first book, My Brother's Keeper, and I tried to get a book deal. I sent out query letters everywhere, trying to get agents and publishers interested in my story. And I got so many rejection letters. I would come home every day with a rejection letter in the mailbox. Sometimes from places I hadn't even sent it. Tell me, don't send it to us. We hear you sending that thing everywhere. Don't send it to us. So I believed in it enough. I self-published it. And then I set out to spread the word about it. The whole thing when you have a book is about getting people talking about the book. But nobody knew who this little ReShonda Tate Billingsley in Oklahoma City was. So I would do things like call a bookstore here in Kansas City and say, hi, do you carry My Brother's Keeper by ReShonda Tate Billingsley? They say, nope, we don't have it, never heard of it. I'd call back about 3 hours later. Hi, do you carry this book called My Brother's Keeper? They say, nope, we don't have it, never heard of it. No joke, right before closing, I'd call and say, I'm looking for this book called My Brother's Keeper. And they would say, you know what, we don't have it, but we need to get it because everybody's calling about this book. And I did that in store after store, day after day, until it finally caught on. And it caught the attention of an agent who signed me, and she got me a book deal with Simon & Schuster. They re-released that book, My Brother's Keeper, in 2003, and here I am. Fortune and Fame is actually my 31st book. So here I am 31 books later. We are promoting Fortune and Fame. This book is the third book in a series that I write with Victoria Christopher Murray, and it is about two first ladies. We took one of her most popular characters and one of my most popular characters, and we brought them together in our first book, Sinners and Saints. And they were trying to become president of the fictitious American Baptist Coalition. Their husbands were running for the position. The husbands wanted to leave the election up to God. The wives wanted to give God a little help. And so that book was so much fun writing with a partner. And we continued the series with Friends and Foes, and we're back now with Fortune and Fame. And these two women are first ladies, but they're a little scandalous first ladies. They struggle in their walk with God. They try their best to walk the straight and narrow, but they seem to bring out the worst in each other. And we just have so much fun writing with each other, because she would send me a chapter and I would get so upset at something her character did. There was one point I wanted to take out a gun, shoot her character right the end. She was like, but ReShonda, that's page 36. We can't do that soon. But it challenged us, because in 3 books that we've written together, we have never changed a word that the other person wrote. And so there came a point where right before the election in the first book, she had my character arrested. Well, as a writer, I had to figure out how to get my character out of jail in time for the election. And so she would send me her chapter like, yeah, I got her now. She can't get out of jail. And so I would have to think creatively how to get my character out of jail. And so that's why it was so much fun writing. In Fortune and Fame, they come together. Rachel has actually gotten a reality show. And Jasmine knows nothing about reality TV. She just knows if Rachel has a show, she wants to be on the show. And so she bogarts her way onto the show, which is on the OWN network, the Oprah Winfrey Network. She bogarts her way onto the show. And so you have these two going back and forth trying to be a star of a reality show, and you throw in 2 women from their past, and you just have a whole mixture of mess. I want to read just a small passage from one of the chapters in Fortune and Fame. They're always finding themselves in the midst of some madness in this. And in this particular scene, they've been called to a local church where they think that they're going to just make an appearance. And so it's Rachel, Jasmine, and the other 2 first ladies. The other first lady on the show, who is Mary, who is Rachel's nemesis, and Natasha, who is Jasmine's nemesis. So this is just a short scene from there. Reverend Woodruff continued, I know some of you are wondering about the cameras, but if you read your emails, you'd see we are filming today. We are happy to be part of a new reality show, so if you have a warrant or you're supposed to be at work, I suggest you move to the back of the church. Chuckles filled the sanctuary as several people turned to look at the 3 cameras positioned throughout the church. And since it's Women's Day, Reverend Woodruff continued, what better way to commemorate the event than to have an anointing word from the first ladies? Rachel looked around the room. Were there some other first ladies here? Maybe he was talking about his wife, because she wasn't getting up and speaking in front of anyone. Sisters, Reverend Woodruff said, motioning for them to come up to the pulpit. Jasmine leaned over to Rachel. I think he's talking about you. Rachel raised an eyebrow but didn't move. I see Satan is trying to keep you ladies in your seats, he laughed when they still didn't move. Come on up. Rachel turned to Jasmine. He said, ladies, plural, come on. I'm not going up there, Jasmine replied. If I have to go, you're going, Rachel whispered, pulling Jasmine's arm. And do what? Jasmine whispered as she stepped out of the aisle behind Rachel. I don't know, Rachel whispered back. Maybe he just wants us to give a word of thanks for being here. Rachel smiled again as all eyes were on them. Mary stood and made her way into the aisle as well. I'm coming too. Rachel ignored her and led her the way up to the pulpit. All right, family, I'm sure they're not as long-winded as yours truly, but I can't wait to be blessed by a word from these women. Reverend Woodruff stepped aside and then pointed to the podium for them to step up. Jasmine folded her arms and planted her feet firmly to let Rachel know she wouldn't be uttering a word. What word was Rachel supposed to give? She took a deep breath. She could do this. As First Lady of the American Baptist Coalition, she spoke all the time. Greetings, family and friend, Rachel began. We just want to thank you for opening your doors to us. We know that you hear reality TV. You might be a little worried, but we want to assure you that we're all about uplifting his holy name. Thank you. She stepped back, and Reverend Woodruff turned to the crowd. Keep going. Our goal, she said nervously, is to bring people to Christ through this show, and we hope that you'll support it. Thank you. Rachel was just about to step away from the podium again when Reverend Woodruff said, go on, sister, tell us what verse you're going to preach from today. Preach? You want me to preach? Rachel yelled, catching herself. I thought we were just saying hi. No, that's what Women's Day is all about. The Reverend looked confused as he glanced out into the audience. That's when Rachel noticed Natasha, the producer, who was standing in the back with the smirk on her face. Now this all made sense. This heifer thought she was slick. She was trying to make Rachel and Jasmine look like fools. Rachel turned back to the pastor. Well, we aren't quite prepared. Nonsense, he said. You're the First Lady of the ABC. You're always prepared. Yeah, Jasmine echoed. You're always prepared, Madam First Lady. Rachel wanted to hit her in her Botoxed eye. She was standing there smirking too, like she was enjoying this. So Rachel turned back to the podium as the congregation erupted in laughter. She could do this. She began, the word of God says, tell us what it says, sister, someone shouted. I will if you give me a chance to talk, Rachel wanted to say. Instead, she said, the word of God says be faithful. What is faith? Faith is like taking the first step without seeing the whole staircase. She paused. Why in the world was she drawing a blank? It's about asking not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Jasmine let out a loud cough. Rachel turned around and glared at her. She took a deep breath. We come to you today as women of faith, as women who have been through the storm. We love the Lord. She looked around at the sea of faces just staring at her. Yes, we love him, she continued. And if loving God is wrong, I don't want to be right. And when your faith is wavering, just do what James Fortune says and hold on. Don't let anyone stand in judgment of you and your faith. Tell them you can do it all because it's the God in you. Let them know that what they can't see is when you're on your knees, so the next time they ask you, you tell them it's the God in me. Rachel was getting into it now. God is faithful. He may not come when you want him, but he'll be there right on time. Don't be ashamed to tell someone to take you to the king, even if you don't have much to bring. So just be faithful. As Jesus told Paul in the Bible, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, nothing will be impossible for you. Jasmine eased up behind her and whispered, I think he was talking to Abraham. Like you know, Rachel hissed. I do know, Jasmine replied back. Then you take over since you're a biblical scholar. Actually, ladies, Reverend Woodruff stepped in. It was Peter that Jesus was talking to when he said that. He nudged him aside and stepped up to the podium. So they actually go back and forth. And so we have so much fun writing this book as we go through it. And we have just as much fun touring together. And we'll do one more Rachel Jasmine book in the series, A Blessing and a Curse, which will be out in this time next year. So that is what I do with the books. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the movie. My second book, Let the Church Say Amen, has been made into a movie. Regina King is making her directorial debut. Queen Latifah's a producer. We have a fantastic cast. Hosea Chanchez, who plays Malik on The Game. Steve Harris, who is from Diary of a Mad Black Woman in Private Practice. Naturi Naughton. And Layla Rashawn plays the First Lady. And when they first told me that Layla Rashawn was playing the First Lady, I was like, Sunshine? Sunshine from Harlem Nights is going to play the First Lady. But she was phenomenal. She was awesome. But I think probably the biggest star of the whole movie would be me. I play a deaconess. I know I only had 6 lines. Well, they cut out 4 of them, so I only ended up with 2 in the final movie. I don't know how the Oscar committee is going to properly gauge me with 2 lines, but I've claimed it. I'm going to win Most Outstanding Supporting Actress. when the movie comes out. It'll be out in the fall, so I'm so excited because I was actually able to be part of the filming. I was on set the entire time, and to see my words come alive on the screen was just a phenomenal experience. We did premiere the film at MegaFest, TD Jakes MegaFest, and we turned away over 800 people, and we had a standing ovation after we were done that went on for about 15 minutes. So I'm very, very excited about that. That is the first of 4 books that are being made into the movie. A movie, Holy Rollers, is next. I did just pen the script. Our producer asked me to write the script for my book, The Secret She Kept, for Lifetime. So usually they hire screenwriters, but he said, I want you to try to write this script. So I wrote the script for the movie, for The Secret She Kept, and he told me to stick to writing books. But he does have someone reworking the script for it to be a movie on Lifetime. So I've just really been blessed to be doing what I do. I would do what I do for free. The great thing is I don't have to. Yes, ma'am.
All your books are fiction.
All of my books are fiction. That is my story, and I'm sticking to it. He has, and I would love to take credit. I definitely believe that I have a gift, but I also am very, very nosy. There is a joke in my family, don't say anything around ReShonda unless you want it in a book. Because I am at the family reunion, laptop open, I'm taking notes. And I come from a very colorful family that provides me with a lot of stories, constantly have stories. From the uncle, the patriarch, who actually went to prison for 7 years. He's a very good guy, but he was going through a divorce, and he went to the bank to go and get his money out of the bank, and it was $284, and so he filled out the slip and handed it to the teller, and the teller said, I'm sorry, you don't have any money in here, it's been cleared out. Your wife took all the money. So they went back and forth. She would not give him the money because it was gone. He went home and got his shotgun. He came back and pointed the shotgun at her and said, I want my money. She gave him all the money out of the drawer, all the thousands of dollars. He counted out $284, and then he went on to the house where, of course, the police were waiting. And he did 7 years in prison, and he said he would go again for his $284. So I constantly have a, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. I have not used that one yet. I do have a lot that I have used. There is a scene in one of my books, I Know I've Been Changed, where they're watching, it's the day after the wedding, and they've gathered to watch a wedding video, what they think is going to be the wedding video, as they have breakfast and open the gifts. And that actually happened. I was at a friend's house, and we thought we were about to watch the wedding video, only it turned out to be the bachelor party video. And it was buck wild. The groom who had gone to the airport was on there with 2 ladies of the evening, and it was just out of control. So my friend, the bride, is on the floor in tears in front of the TV. Her mother's over here clutching the pearls. His mother over here about to pass out, and I'm in the back of the room waiting. I can't wait to get home so I can write this down. And I used it. I did change the names to protect the guilty. No, they are not done. They stayed together for a little while after that. But I didn't have anything. I just told the story. I had nothing to do with it. I told her, won't nobody know it's her unless she go around telling people it's her. So yes, ma'am, I do. I'm pulling it from everywhere. So far, it has not been a problem in any of my with any of my family or friends. There was one in that particular book. I have a character. Her name is Shondella, and she is very, very over the top, outrageous. She's country. She's ghetto. She has kids she named after her favorite cars: Toyota, Camry, Mercedes. She is just very, very over the top. So my husband read the book, and he was mortified. He said, "Why would you name this character after my sisters?" He was like, you know they don't like you, and you're going to name this girl after my sisters. His sisters' names are Sean and Della. And I created this outrageous character named Shondella. And his sisters, one of them is very, very ghetto. One of them is country. One of them has kids. We still can't pronounce their names, and they're grown. And so it didn't dawn on me, and I subconsciously created this character. So I was like, it is about to be some major drama in the Billingsley household. But luckily, like I said, they're a little over the top, so when they saw it, they was like, oh, I'm in a book. I'm in a book. So all was well. No problems. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What has been your inspiration and motivation, all along for you to do what you do?
I'm just, I believe in following my dreams. There's a counselor one time that told me, she asked me what I wanted to be. I think I was in like the 11th grade. And I said, I want to be an author, an anchor, and an actress. And she said, you can't be all of those things. This isn't kindergarten. You need to pick something. Because I wish I could find out, say, how you like me now? But I've been motivated because, I always think outside the box. I reach outside the box. My mother used to always say, you always doing something. Even in high school, she made me take a drug test one time because she said she thought I was on speed. She didn't even know what speed was, but because I was always running and doing stuff, she swore something was going on. But I've been, life is short, and I believe in being happy and reaching for your dreams, even when people tell you that you can't. And so that's my inspiration and motivation. I know, we're a handful. Yes, ma'am. Do you have her number? Because she has not contacted me. No, not yet. Not yet. I'm trying. Now, I will tell you this. Oprah is the reason that I got out of the National Enquirer. Because we were trying to do a story on Stedman. We heard her and Stedman were getting married, and she found out that the paparazzi was following her. And then on the last day, I think she found out who I was, and she didn't say a word. She just gave me the most hateful look. So I said, when I finally get on her show one day, I hope she never remembers that. But when Oprah looked at me crazy, I was like, it's time to turn in my notice. So not yet. Yes, ma'am. It was actually my publisher's. Thank you. It was my publisher's idea. We're fans of each other's work. We read each other. We were friends, but we had never thought to write a book together. And my publisher at Simon & Schuster actually came up with the idea, and we loved it, and we've loved it ever since. Yes, ma'am.
Write alternate chapters.
Yes, ma'am.
Did she write the first one about Rachel?
No, she writes about Jasmine, but there are times when she has to include Rachel in her Jasmine chapters. So she would write the first one about Jasmine. In this particular book, she would write about Jasmine, and then I would follow with Rachel. And then we switch it up.
In other words, you are giving yourself difficult times.
It wasn't difficult. She stayed true to my character. There's a scene where in her chapter where she has Rachel. She hits Rachel and knocks her out. And I didn't complain because Rachel kind of deserved it. Rachel borrowed her child without telling her and made her think she was kidnapped. And so you stay true to the character. And because we respect the craft of writing, it's not difficult writing each other's characters.
In other words, Rachel is a character in your past book or books?
Yes, ma'am. I have a whole series that revolves around Rachel. The movie is the first Rachel book. Let the church say amen. Rachel is a preacher's daughter in that book, and then she becomes a preacher's wife, and everybody say amen. So we each have a series of books with those characters.
Yeah, I was wondering about the past history of people because I find out, I read the book.
Yes, ma'am.
About people who I felt the story was told elsewhere.
Yes, ma'am. Their stories are in previous books as well. So we try to make it where if you haven't read it, you can still get it, but you can tell that they've been addressed in another book. So Mary and Rachel's story is in a book called Everybody Say Amen. Yes, ma'am. I have a minister in my family. Actually, the character I just read, Reverend Moses Woodruff, I keep the real ministers. I do, in a good light. But no, that he's the only one. I do have a couple of uncles, but a lot of people think, am I a preacher's child? I am not. I grew up in the church with my grandmother because we were there Sunday through Sunday, every night. And so I'm a product of church, but I write reality. And I've actually caught flack from some people because of what I write. But I write the real world, and in the real world, the crackheads I know don't say, well, pass the pipe, gosh darn it, In the real world, the churches I know are not all, all peaches and cream. And so those are the things that I write. I write the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. We do. We do have several of our books are in large print as well. Yes, ma'am. In the back.
What else did you do to?
You know, it was about building that buzz. So I was calling old friends and say, hey, you know, I have this book out. I really would appreciate your support. And they're like, girl, I hadn't talked to you since 4th grade. I'm like, that's okay. But still, can you go buy the book? I did. I had no shame, just trying to get out. It's about spreading the word and building a buzz. And there were some instances where I even gave the book away because I felt like once people read one of my books, then they would want more of them. Yes, ma'am.
So what's your writing process? Hours, every day, 3 days a week?
I would love to say that I go sit off in a mountain in Maine and drink my coffee and look at the waterfalls and all of that. But I have 3 kids, 4 if you count my husband. And I don't have a pattern. I just make sure I write every day. I'm a night owl, so even if I try to write during the day, it just doesn't come. My muse kicks in at about midnight. She's like, let's do it, let's go. But I just make sure I do it every day. Now, I do have a lot of books, and the way that I'm able to churn those out is I utilize every spare moment. I believe every minute you spend talking about what you don't have time to do could be spent doing it. So if I have to drive across town to a doctor's appointment, I'm dictating a chapter in my Rolodex. I mean, in my phone, in my audio memo. And so that's how I'm able to get so many books done, because I use a lot of time to dictate. But I just make sure that I do something writing every day. Yes, ma'am.
How many books do you publish a year? Do you have a certain amount that you?
Yes, ma'am. I do one main adult title every July. I do a book with Victoria in the beginning of the year, and then I write teen books that come out throughout the year. So I don't have a set amount. Usually, I'm looking at the last few years I've been doing about 4 to 5 books a year. And I also just started with Victoria Christopher Murray. We just started our very own publishing company called Brown Girls Publishing. And what we decided to do is Victoria and I are really blessed. We are among the last African-American authors standing at Simon & Schuster. They have gotten rid of everybody. I'm with my division. I'm one of the last ones. And with hers, she is as well. And it's not because we're better writers than anybody else. It's just that the industry is changing. So there are some very talented authors that no longer have deals. So we decided to start a publishing company. We're a boutique publisher, and we publish other people. So far, we've had released our first 4 titles, and we're called Brown Girls Publishing because we're 2 brown girls. But we publish all races. We publish men. We're so excited with how the company has taken off. And so now, on top of doing all of my own writing, I'm also a publisher. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Early on, you said that you were from this area. Did you go to school?
I didn't. I left when I was 7, but I did. I was born here and stayed here till I was about 7, and my cousin just walked in the back that tried to kill me when I was a little girl. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. That story was so scandalous. I'm even ashamed. I remember that I remember describing the negligee that I put on, and I just was thinking the whole time I write this, if my mama find this, she gonna kill me. Now, while I was sending it to a magazine with my name on it is beyond me, but they did publish it with my name, ReShonda Tate, and so it was just I didn't tell the age. I don't think I said how old it was, but I just said and it ended with me getting the husband and her being upset.
Going back to previous books of yours, so here is Rachel and here is Mary, and Mary is set up, she's a cult person. Things that are not above
Right.
level. As soon as she has, because of an assignment,
Mm-hmm.
she seduces.
Right. She seduces.
Your department.
Yes, that was my character. And that, speaking on what you said was true, actually came during, and I know it's pretty bad. I'm supposed to be in church getting my word. But there was one particular Sunday, I attended a predominantly African-American church, and this beautiful white woman came up to the altar call at the end. And she asked that we pray for her because she was having an affair with one of the ministers at church. So I took out my notepad. I didn't write a single word during the sermon, but I took everything she said, and that's where Mary came from that character. And so, yes, so she does have a history, and so I'll take a situation like that, and then I create a backstory. So I wanted to go up to the woman, but she was crying. I was like, it's probably not appropriate if I could ask if I could interview her. But she did. So that's where it came. So I get those nuggets from real life. I type a lot in Starbucks. So I'm in Starbucks working, and you have no idea. You came in for your morning latte, and I made you into a serial killer. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about your teen and how you got into that and what makes that successful?
Yes, ma'am. I have two separate teen series, a Good Girls teen series and Rumor Central. My nieces were with me for the summer, and I wanted them to get away from the television and go watch and go read. So I sent them to my library. I'm an avid reader, and they came out with books by Zane and Eric Jerome Dickey, and they were 14 and 16. And these were Della's kids, so she already didn't like me. So I couldn't have the kids reading inappropriate stuff. So I gave them Ernest Gaines, A Lesson Before Dying, Toni Morrison, and they were like, we don't want to read this. This is boring, and we could not find anything to agree on. And that's when I realized there was a void there, that I wanted to create drama-filled, page-turning books, but without sex or profanity. Books that young people wanted to read and books that their parents didn't mind them reading. So I took my first teen series, The Good Girls, and each of the books is based on a 10 commandment or a spiritual theme, but it's written so that the kids don't realize it. So if you're talking about Thou Shalt Not Steal, is dealing with buying bootleg and hot items, or honoring thy parents. And so all of those, and they don't realize there's a message until they finish the book. So it's been very, very successful. I'm very excited about that. And then Rumor Central is more of a Gossip Girl type teen series with a tabloid news reporter that's a young reporter. They're about 13 to 19, although a lot of adults like the books. With the Good Girls, Rachel actually started the Good Girls because what I wanted the parents reading the adult books and then have the crossover characters in the teen books so that parents could, mothers and daughters could have book discussions. And it's worked out very well. Hold on, she said, well, I'll get you in just a minute. What is my typical day? My children get ready for school in the morning, so I make sure that they get off. I cannot function until I've had my coffee. And then I get to either doing promotional stuff, administrative stuff, but I'm working constantly. And I write, I get writing in there throughout the day and then stop long enough to get them fed and play chauffeur, getting them around, and then come back home and get them in the bed and start all over. So it's just making sure that I write every day. He would probably say, she don't. No, I do. I try to make sure that I get family time. Even when I travel, I do travel a lot. I don't stay around and tour the city. I get in, I get out, and I get right back home so that I can make sure that my family doesn't suffer. And my husband is very busy as well, so we have to make time. He's vice president of Prairie View A&M University. Yes, ma'am.
You said sometimes you get
Yes, ma'am.
Are you waiting while you're driving, or are you actually?
Now, I'm creating a story. I'm writing these chapters that you see in here. I'm talking them out as I'm driving. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you see any of your kids being like you, like being writers?
My children do. My middle one especially loves to write. She's forever coming to me with the story that she wrote. I am very saddened, though, because I discovered right before I came here that all these magnificent stories she was writing she was going off the internet and copying them verbatim. So we had to have a long talk. My oldest daughter did really love writing. She would get very agitated with me because she would bring her story to me to read, but I'm an editor by trade. And I had to learn to be mommy because she would bring her story to me and I'm like, okay, but you misspelled this word, you misspelled. She's just like, forget it. And so I had to work on taking off that editor author hat and just letting her tell her story. Now she's 13, all she wants to do is take pictures of herself. 777 pictures of herself. And then my youngest son, he just wants to rewrite every book you read him, every book, everything, he wants to rewrite the book, including the Bible. I said, no, baby, we're going to leave that one alone. He did. He was like, Mama, I'm rewriting the Bible. I'm going to tell you. I said, no, baby, we're going to leave that one alone. Yes, sir. I do. I love, I do watch reality TV. My family walks in and was like, you're too educated for this. But I do. I like reality TV. But I'm a workaholic. And if I have to work on anything, it's not being a workaholic. Because I went to a Prince concert and, I couldn't enjoy myself because I was like, I could have had 3 chapters written by now. So I really do know that is something, an area of my life I have to work on. He has not yet. You got his number? Maybe if I can meet with him, I can. Did Prince give me any ideas? I haven't. Tyler actually turned down. I met Tyler. Tyler turned down I Know I've Been Changed. His top person in command wanted him to do I Know I've Been Changed. And he turned it down because he said it was too close to what he already writes. And he wanted to do stuff that was different from what he did. So I understood that. I mean, he gonna come to me once he see me acting, see my 2 lines. I know he's gonna want me to star in his next movie, so. Yes, ma'am.
Does it sound like you have much of a problem with writer's block?
I never get writer's block, never. I think it's because I write through it. Even if the story isn't flowing, I get it out. I just throw everything on the paper, and because the greatest invention ever is that delete button. And so I can always go back and get rid of something. But writer's block has killed so many great writers. It stops many of you probably, from sharing your stories with the world. And life will always get in the way. So what will happen is writer's block will make you get up from the computer, or if you're writing long-headed, writer's block will make you stop, and then next thing you know, you folding clothes, you're doing something else. So I just keep going. I go straight through writer's block, even if I don't use it. Any other questions? Well, let me tell you about my next title that's coming out in June. It's called What's Done in July, What's Done in the Dark. And it is about a woman who makes the mistake and accidentally ends up in a motel room with her best friend's husband. I know, like accidentally. She's mad at her husband. He's mad at his wife. His wife is her best friend. They've had too much to drink. They have a chemistry. They have a history. They end up in a hotel room, spend the night together. The problem is he doesn't wake up the next morning. He dies. So my question is, what do? Do you call the police or do you get your stuff and go? And y'all want to say Rachel and Jasmine scandalous. It's funny because I posed that question on social media, and I'm really thinking that people are going to say, no, I'm going to do the right thing and call the police. Everybody kept saying, I'm out. I'm gone. I'm not calling anybody.
I had a teacher who actually told that story to me, that I don't know if it was somebody's husband, but she actually, this was, because the teacher's dead now, so I'm not.
You could tell it. We won't tell her you told, girl.
But she was talking to me because she was, sometimes you have teachers just take to you, and she took to me. And so, this is way out of high school that I ran into her again, and she was telling me about this little friend of hers who was in a hotel with a man, and in the middle of the intercourse, he died. And she called her and said, what do I do? She said, slip underneath that man and get that.
And so that's what my character is faced with. What does she do? I know it's a lot of stuff I write is true. Now, if you tell me a judge, if you try to take me to court, I'm gonna say I don't know what you're talking about. But yes, and so that's what in what's done in the dark. Does she leave and go help her best friend plan a funeral, or does she actually? She don't know. Yes, she does. Yes, ma'am.
I thought your next lecture would be about May Francis.
I know a lot of people say that. We are working on a book about May Francis.
Okay.
Yes, the autobiography of May Francis. All right, well, yes, ma'am. You get paid per book. A lot of times they'll give you an advance up front, and then you get paid per book you sell. And that's why a lot of authors have lost their book deals, because a lot of times people share books without realizing the damage that it's doing to authors. I actually had a woman come to me one time and say, "Oh, I'm one of your biggest fans. I love your book. I bought it and I passed it to 37 of my friends." And I looked at her and said, "I made $1." And so that's what happens. So the publishers are like, well, yeah, people are reading it, but she made $1 because we make $1.05 per book, and that's what they base it on. And it's called a royalty. And so that's how we get paid, and that's why so many people don't have book deals. Now, it's funny because my son is aware of that, and we were in Walmart one day, and he wanted some toy that was $6, and he went and got 6 of my books off the shelf and walked around Walmart talking about, "Can you buy my mama book?" So I could earn $1 so she could buy me my toy. Yes, sir. Absolutely, absolutely. Ebooks have actually, they hurt the publishing industry overall. But if you're looking at self-publishing, I would definitely encourage it. I'm a believer in the hardback, but we have to be aware of technology. We like that people are reading. Our preference is that they would read the actual book, because the books keep bookstores in business, they keep libraries in business, but we also know the world is changing. And instead of taking a big investment in getting books printed, ebooks would be the way to go to self-publish. Yes, ma'am. It's just sending it to book clubs, sending it to people and asking them to take a look at it, because if they like a book, they're going to spread the word about it. And that is the bottom line with your books. It's word of mouth. I initially, like I said, I caught a lot of flack with Let the Church Say Amen, because people classify me as Christian fiction. I am a Christian who writes fiction, but I don't like to be classified as Christian fiction, because then, I get the hateful emails from people that I did get. One woman told me I was going to burn in hell because my character wasn't delivered from his homosexuality. Another woman said I was just the worst person ever because Rachel said a curse word, because Christians, I guess, don't curse or have sex. I don't know how baby Christians get here, but that's another story. And so I caught it a lot because of that. But what it did is it fueled the fire. There was a bookstore in Virginia. They had invited me down, and then they canceled the appearance. They had sold 200 tickets to an event. Then they canceled it because they said they got to chapter 12 of Let the Church Say Amen and realized I wrote soft porn. And I had to go get the book to see what they were talking about. And the line was, she lowered her head in his lap. That's all I said. And they said that was soft porn. But what it did is it spurred debate, because this woman emailed me. She said, "I don't know who you are, but I bought your book because they didn't want to sell it to the woman in front of me." And so they were selling it behind the counter like it was Hustler magazine. But what happened is it built a buzz. And so that's what you want. You want people talking about it to build that buzz. No bad publicity. Yes, ma'am. I don't. The publisher decides that. I would love for all of my books to be on audio, but the publisher decides it. And slowly they're moving a lot of my books over to audio. It is. It's coming on audio. It is coming. Yes, sir. It depends on who's doing the judging. I mean, most people wouldn't, they wouldn't classify it as that. It's just that this particular place did. I think as long as it's not gratuitous and it has a purpose, even if it is between teenagers, I think that, it's acceptable for your reader, depending on who your reader is.
I think maybe one more, and it's time for science and books.
Yes, ma'am.
I have seen a couple of authors advertise their books on television.
Yes, unless you're friends with Robert Johnson, or you got some Kathy Hughes friends somewhere. It is very expensive, and then you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? So one of the things that I try to do is I try to think innovative ways of getting the word out, because the advertising in television, magazines, even newspapers is pretty expensive, and so I try to create stories. There was a friend that actually took the money she was going to use for advertising, and she paid people to sit on the subway in New York and crack up laughing at her book. I think it was a brilliant marketing move, because they're just on the train, just cracking up, falling all out their seat, and then everybody wants to know what they're laughing about, and they write the title down and they go home and order the book. So it's about always thinking outside the box. All right, thank you all so much.
Thanks, ReShonda. Fortune and Fame, many other books by ReShonda Tate Billingsley are outside. We'll see you there.